Howdy, y'all. Today we are here with Frustrated Atheist.
Heyo.
Heyo. So, Frustrated, what's going on? What you been up to lately?
Oh, nothing much. Just dying.
Dying? Oh.
Dying.
Oh, I think you've got one of them colds too.
Yeah. As my wife says, it's the bubonic plague.
Yeah, of course. It can't be anything but.
Exactly.
So, yeah, have you been in any kind of discussions, or you been making videos, or?
I've done a couple of debates. I'm in the process of making a video, but with my voice sounding like crap right now, it goes off with the other parts of the audio that I've already recorded, so I'm just gonna wait until my voice comes back for that.
So, of course, Snarky is making him use his voice because she's a taskmaster. Yeah, well, we have to talk about OSHO because OSHO is something that apparently, well, from my experience, not very many people know about. Yeah, his little cult was quite an interesting piece of our history, I'd say.
Yeah, he really was. And it was very, very interesting to read and watch what unraveled from his time frame.
Yeah, and at that time, this was the late 70s, early 80s, so there was still a lot of people kind of coming from the hippie mindset, I guess you might want to call it. But
Yeah.
we were also kind of, in the early 80s, there was this highlight of like Ayn Rand philosophy or the virtue of selfishness and things of that nature, right? So here along comes this charismatic guru who had once been a philosopher, in fact.
Yeah.
He actually taught philosophy till he was kicked out of university for the stuff he was saying. He was quite a wild character.
Yeah, and his philosophy on sex and all that really played to a lot of the hippie generation.
Yeah, free love, y'all. Free love and selfishness. Sounds
Exactly.
like a great combination.
Of course.
1974, after he was kind of getting famous, people were paying attention to the things he was saying, and they were interested in the spiritual movement of quote unquote enlightenment, or Samadhi, which I'll get to and kind of explain a little bit further depth. But people were finding these teachings to be intriguing and attractive to people who were essentially capitalists or Westerners. He was able to grow his ashram, which he established in 1974, pretty easily.
Yeah, he sure was.
Yeah, actually, Christopher Hitchens did a piece on this.
And Christopher Hitchens demonstrated the way Osho moved so beautifully, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. I believe the quote was, leave minds and shoes at the door or at the gate.
Yeah,
One of
something
the
like
two.
that.
It highlights what was at the heart of Osho's philosophy because basically he was trying to get people so frantic and close to death that nothing mattered but luxury.
Yep.
It's strange.
And we all know now the luxury lifestyle that Osho loved to have.
Oh, yeah. With the Rolls Royces, which he's very famous for. He had a fleet of them. It was over 90 of them.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, whenever he walked out of one of them, they rolled out a carpet for him and everything.
Oh, yeah. They had like legit militias watching this man. He has his own security force and Rolexes. But anyway, at the heart of his meditation, though, is a phenomenon known as Samadhi, which is a state of intense concentration. So, in this state of concentration, usually the participant feels kind of at one with that moment, kind of like you would upon death, I suppose. You would just feel this tranquil, transcendental kind of peace dwelling, coming over you. That was what the heart of his spiritual philosophy was. It was very much based on sex because, as I'm sure you know, Indian culture is steeped in all kinds of spiritual sex, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's where we get the Kama Sutra and, all this other stuff.
Yeah, sex plays a big role in their philosophy.
Yes, definitely. And they think there's some kind of like a spiritual aspect to it, which also the Gnostics had this kind of belief system.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that he establishes that. And at some point or another, he gains a following, and a lot of them are depicted in of course, the documentary. We can't talk about Osho without discussing the Netflix documentary, Wild Wild Country, right?
Yes.
So, what were your thoughts on documentary and?
I think the documentary covered it beautifully as it all unfolded. As you watch each episode, which I believe there's like 6 of them, each episode doesn't tell you anything going on beforehand. It all plays it out as it unfolds. The first few episodes are nothing but the happy-go-lucky lifestyle that people associated at first with the Osho movement. And then it's not until later on in the series where you start to get the more in-depth look at what was going on as the entire country and the entire world was starting to get from it as it unfolded, which I think was a beautiful way to do the documentary style. And it was just amazing.
It was. I do think that there's a lot that was framed in kind of an odd way about the documentary, but I digress. The main thing that I think was kind of left out of it was the depth of the philosophy, which, of course, Snarky's going to go after the philosophy. So, in previous times, the Hindu philosophy usually would embrace an asceticism form, which is basically denouncing worldly needs like food and shelter and things like that, riches.
Yeah.
So that you can kind of symbolically denounce the ego. And that's at the heart of most of these transcendental type of spiritual movements. That's mostly what's at the heart of it, right? Is getting rid of the ego or the mind or whatever terminology you want to use.
Yeah.
So one way that they would do this is, of course, worship a leader, put a necklace around your neck with his picture on it and wear exactly what all the other followers of Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh wear as neo-sannyasins. Yay! We're a unimind.
Yeah, we are definitely not individuals whatsoever.
No. It reminds me of like ants or bees, like a hive mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's really strange. And to have this mixed in with some of the other philosophical things about sex is really, I think, it's not a good mixture. You're going to have some violence and some overstepping boundaries.
Yeah, and not only that, but with the fact that you wear everything everyone else wears and you do whatever everyone else does, it doesn't, especially if you're trying to paint yourselves as more of a lifestyle than an actual religion or whatever, that doesn't help people not kind of conceptualize that you're a cult or that you're, not doing this due to religious aspects or anything like that. That's what they were kind of pushing themselves off to be, was like more of a lifestyle, that this was a way of life. This wasn't a cult. This wasn't religious in any sort of way. This was all just a way of life.
Yeah, well, this certainly was not framed as a way of life in the teachings, because he basically, as I'm showing right here, he says, ours is the only religion, first religion of the history of the world. All others are just premature experiments which have failed. And we are not going to fail, for the simple reason because we don't have any belief that can be proved untrue. We don't have any dogma that can be criticized. So is that a good argument, do you think, for a religion to say, well, ours is the only one, all y'all were just like not the real Slim Shady?
Yeah, no, definitely not. Especially because look at the which goes on into another Christopher Hitchens quote whenever he's asked about Islam, and he said, about it being one of the most dangerous religions in the world. And he says, yes, because while all religions claim to be the true religion, Islam goes one further. They say, we are the final word of God, and there can be no other after us. And that alone entices violence. And so saying that we are the true religion is going to entice, at the very least, conflict.
Definitely. And to go even a step further and say, well, it's not that we're the last religion. It's just that we're the only one that ever truly existed. All y'all are just fake.
Yeah,
y'all are fake news.
Yeah, that alone is going to entice, at the very least, conflict. Yeah. And at the maximum, complete and utter violence.
Yeah, and then, like I said, to mix that in with, well, this whole primal energy thing, which, if you would like, we could kind of watch a little short video on the dynamic meditation.
For this first stage of 10 minutes, stand with your feet shoulder-width apart and knees relaxed and slightly bent. This will help you to stay loose throughout. Make sure you have enough space to allow your whole body to move and really get into the breathing. Keep your mouth closed and breathe fast and deep through the nose. Breathe like bellows, emphasizing the exhalation, the out-breath. And avoid...
So basically, hyperventilate.
Yeah, basically, all you're doing is hyperventilating and getting your heart rate moving at an extreme speed.
Yeah, that will absolutely do nothing to change your brain state. Nothing.
No.
Nothing at all.
And avoid getting into any rhythm. Be total. Don't let up. Allow the energy to build and build.
What does he mean by energy?
The thing is whenever you're moving, you do have kinetic energy that's being built up. So he's trying to say that for some reason, the kinetic energy is going to build up enough during this time frame. But that's the issue, is that the way he's using energy, it's not sounding as if he's speaking about kinetic energy and stuff like that. It seems like he's talking more along the lines of what a lot of New Agers considered energy as being the source of your inner self type of thing, which is odd and weird, in my opinion.
Psychic energy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not to be confused with movement type energy.
Yeah, no.
Physics is also fake news.
Yeah.
And we're just going to conflate terms because that's what we do.
Exactly.
No one's going to ask what I mean by energy.
No, they're going to just do as being told.
Yep, except for Mrs. Snarky. Mrs. Snarky will ask, and so will frustrated atheist.
Oh, yes. I want to know every aspect of this, and that's why I've looked into a lot of the whole entire movement, heart rate, and this building up of quote-unquote energy.
Well, you certainly generate heat.
Yes, you will generate heat because as the kinetic energy within you is being built up because of your movement, the energy itself is going to produce heat.
Would you say that there's any way in which the person is actually even losing energy as this heat radiates?
Yes, of course. What's going to happen is the more work you put into it, the more heat you lose out of it, and the less energy you will be retaining. So in other words, you're going to end up, especially if you get really wild, you will end up losing more energy than you are building up.
Well, I guess that plays into the whole wild, wild country concept, yes?
Yeah. It's important to stay aware in the breathing, to observe from inside as if you are just a spectator, as if everything is happening to somebody else.
It's not real. It's happening to someone else. This is just like, it's like they're describing being drunk or being drugged.
Yeah, or even the lesser version of that, which would be the whole entire out of body experience of just not being aware of what's going on, but watching it as if you're watching a movie.
Yeah, no judgment, just a spectator.
Yeah, and that's just ridiculous.
Allow all your feelings to come out over the next 10 minutes. A little acting can help you to start, and then you will find many emotions surfacing of their own accord. Whatever comes out, anger, sadness, laughter, fear, just let it all erupt through body movements and sound. The feelings will keep changing if you stay open and don't let your mind interfere with what is happening.
What the hell? Okay, so far we have hyperventilate, okay, and then we have you're just watching a movie, and now we are going into frenzied, out of control, raw emotions just being acted out.
Yeah, and so for any who don't know, what's going to end up happening is as you're going from the first stage to the second stage, you hyperventilate, your heart rate elevates, and as you're moving into the second stage of letting all raw emotion come out, you are literally going to only exude the emotions that are associated with higher heart rates. So, in other words, it's going to be things like fear, like anger, and all these bad qualities that are within us due to higher heart rates. Yes. And so all you're going to do is really cause harm to not only yourself, but to others.
Yeah, lots of midbrain kind of, well, it's basically like what they call primal meditation, right? Where you're just hyper focusing on the responses and feelings that arise from the midbrain, which is not very well regulated. Whenever you don't have the, for lack of a better term, energy to govern these emotions such as anger, then yeah, some violent things can occur. I don't see how this is a good combination, especially if you have a school full of people who are just all doing this practice together. It seems like, and there have been reports of some violent and, well, just horrible situations that arose from these kind of things. Because it's a sex cult, right? He wasn't called the sex guru for nothing.
Right.
So let's see. The third stage. Is she still just throwing a fit like a toddler?
Pretty much.
Keep your eyes closed, arms raised, and for the next 10 minutes, jump up and down, shouting, "Who?" as you land on the floor.
With this is also a common practice with various sects of Krishna worshippers. There's actually a sect around here, the Eckankar cult. And what they believe is that master souls or whatever, like Jesus, ascended master, and Einstein, whoever the fuck you want, I guess. They just make up these entities as they go along. And one of their main chants is, who? It's ridiculous. But it's the Krishnas for you. This very interesting stuff. But if you read some of the forums and stuff from the ex-cult members, it's really sad, the stuff that they go through. They isolate them, and it's a lot like the stuff you hear from Scientology.
Yeah. So as far as the physical aspect so far, we went from building up your heart rate to exhausting out pretty much every measure of any energy stored within your body as far as kinetic energy goes, to now depleting anything else that's left within your body as far as energy goes. That's all this stage does, is any energy that might have been left after you've completely thrown a big hissy fit, it will be depleted by jumping and doing the whoo. As your heart starts to calm down, you will eventually get to the point where you just are depleted of everything.
Right. Yeah. So what do you mean by energy?
Again, I mean by the kinetic energy that's stored up from the initial movement from stage 1.
Yeah, so all the stuff you've been putting in your mouth cavity that you ate, that's gone.
Yeah.
You burns the calories. And where do they go? Oh, they're gone. So you're not saving the energy. You're not dominating any sort of force. So the whole energy thing, I think we can throw that out the window as nonsense.
Yeah, that's all it is nonsense. They want you to believe that this is what's going on when in all actuality, nothing of the sort is.
So that's the third stage, right? And let's see, the fourth.
Pact of the who, move inside soundlessly. Freeze immediately when you hear the stop, and for the next 15 minutes, remain just like a statue, eyes closed, without adjusting the body in any way at all. From inside, just be a watcher, observing passively any bodily sensations, any thoughts, and any feelings, as well as being aware of anything happening outside you. The first 3 stages are a preparation for this stage.
It all comes down to just standing there.
Yeah, and one of the biggest problems with just standing is when I was in the Army, we had formations where we would stand for 30, 40, sometimes an hour and a half. And we were constantly told to make sure that your knees are not locked, because if your knees are locked, you will fall out. And guarantee you, there's somebody who did not listen, would lock out their knees and end up hitting the ground, because you are causing your body to do something that it's not meant to do. And because it's not meant to stand like that with your knees locked for long periods of time, you are not going to be standing for much longer.
Yeah, you're going to just...
Yeah.
You're just going to, like, pass out, right?
Yeah, so telling people to stand as is without notifying them, hey, make sure you at least, not lock your knees, is very dangerous.
Definitely. That's good advice. I've been told that as well. That is not what you want to do, because people will pass out. It'll be like those scared goat videos. Anyway, I think, isn't this the last of the dynamic meditation? At least we're going to dance now. We're all happy, and there's a 5th stage.
Still with your eyes closed, for the last stage of 15 minutes, just let the body move into dance as a celebration.
Oh, yeah. So now we're going to get all dizzy and dance and stuff.
Yeah, you're going to dance in a very peaceful way after you've already elevated your heart rate and then for 10 minutes stopped everything you were doing and caused your heart rate to go back down.
Well, I imagine that would feel pretty damn good after you've been throwing a fit and acting crazy for 15 minutes.
Well, technically, if you go from stage 1 to stage 4, you're looking at 10 minutes per stage until the 5th stage, which is 15. So you're looking at 30 minutes of pretty much making sure that your heart rate stays elevated, and then a 10-minute stage of just letting your body calm down, and then a 15-minute stage of a quote-unquote cool-off period.
So basically, you could get all of this from maybe just doing regular exercise. Do you have to throw a fit?
No, as a matter of fact, a good intense run will accomplish the same thing with elevating your heart rate and causing you to do everything that first 30 minutes were to do. If you're not good at running for long periods of time, you can also do a very good sprint at like 10 minutes. And sprint for 10 minutes if you can, or just sprint, stop, sprint, speed walk, sprint, speed walk, and do intervals of that for 10 minutes, and then doing a walk for like maybe another 10.
Right.
The same thing will be accomplished as that.
I heard that if you do like intermittent exercise like that, it does a lot of good. But see, the thing that I don't like about this is the fact that you could get a much healthier workout without having to set the stage for, like, I don't know, assaults of any kind, because you're just flailing about and exuding wrath and fear and all this stuff in a room full of a bunch of people. I mean, like, if you've ever been to a mosh pit, have you ever been to a mosh pit?
I have a funny story. I was once in a mosh pit accidentally. I got too close to the front of the stage.
Yep, that's
when
how it
they
happened.
started a mosh pit, and somebody banged into me and knocked my glasses down. I picked them up and I walked right out of that mosh pit.
You were able to walk out of it and pick up your glasses? I'm
Yes,
shocked.
because I was right there at the edge. I was there at the edge, got hit, got bumped into the first time. Somebody punched me in the face, so knocked my glasses down. So I picked them up, said, "Nope, I don't want any part of this," and walked right out of it.
So you've participated in dynamic meditation. Congrats!
Pretty much.
You're a graduate.
Pretty much without realizing it.
So yeah, pretty much this is just putting your body in a different state, and I don't know, maybe getting some aerobics. Yuck. Who would want to do this?
Especially with the fact that I can go to any gym and get a better workout for less strain on my body. I would definitely not want to do that whatsoever.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. This is what really surprised me, was I was able to find all kinds of journals in the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institutions of Health, that are very OSHO friendly, right?
Yeah.
Insights on sex, dynamic meditation, and cortisol. They're very interesting, indicating that the overall cortisol levels have fallen in people that participate in dynamic meditation.
And what are those levels?
Well, cortisol is basically a hormone that has to do with stress.
Mm-hmm.
And if you participate in this, they say that it has an anti-stress effect because it lowers the cortisol levels.
Which can be done by a lot of other means that are a lot healthier.
Yeah, right? But yeah, basically they came to the conclusion that there was a significant reduction in plasma cortisol levels when the participants were tested after 21 days of the dynamic meditation.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, but it's also like, yeah, you don't have to do all of this stuff to get the same benefits, I don't think. I think you're right about that.
I'm definitely on the entire level of the fact that you can definitely accomplish a lot of what the quote-unquote benefits of the meditation by other more safe means than that. And
also maybe away from a dear leader. Just saying, away from a dear leader who is trying to enrich himself and have sex with everyone. I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Really strange.
His whole entire leadership and whatnot he was doing was definitely very strange and odd.
He seems like one of the people that should be like issuing an apology on the national news.
Yeah.
And on Twitter.
He definitely should be. He definitely looks like he should.
Yes. Whenever I look at this man, I see a psychopath. That's just me, but I know some things about what he's done whenever he came to the United States, which we'll get to in the next portion of our series.
Mm-hmm.
But during his time, he didn't come to the United States until 1981, I believe. He purchased the ranch in Antelope, Oregon.
Yep.
Which was a 64,000 acre property. They called it Big Muddy Ranch.
Yeah.
And so they basically just wanted to make their own city, make their own rules, and run away from, apparently he had a lot of debts and things in India.
Yeah, and we'll cover the community of Antelope's ideas on why they at first were accepting of the buying of the land in the next episode.
Yeah.
And cover in depth what was going through their minds at the time as all this started unfolding.
Yes, because he had enough time to gain a following when he was in India, and he did, but he ran into some financial issues. Apparently, he came into debt. He owed the government around like $5 million.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, he had to flee, and so his little minions that worshipped him, mainly his secretary, Ma Anand, which we'll get into even more depth in the next episode, of course, purchased this ranch, lied to the government about why they were coming to the United States. And yeah, basically Ma Anand did everything she could for Osho, got him everything that he needed. And he was, in fact, the dear leader. He was not shy about calling this a religion. He was not shy about saying that I am an enlightened guru and I have the answers.
Yeah, he was definitely okay with all that.
I think he's a psychopath, but that's just me. And I've seen a lot of people share memes with this dude's face on it, and I'm just like, why? Why would you think anything this man has to say is of any value whatsoever?
Yeah, it's beyond me as well. I look at the man, and after knowing what we've found out about him, it's just, there's no way in hell I could ever see him as anything but a monster.
Yeah. And see, like I said, if you look at the memes, he even looks like a psychopath. Like this one. Greatest fear in the world is of the opinions of others, and the moment you are afraid of the crowd, you are no longer a sheep, you become a lion. A great roar rises in your heart, the roar of freedom. It's like...
Yeah. These are all just feel-good messages that are generic, that can be given by literally anyone, and they think that he is some amazing man because he's spouted out with these generic lines.
Yes.
These are types of things that I would expect on a Hallmark greeting card.
Essentially, it seems like people overlook just how horrible he was. And there's an apologetic that, oh, well, the government hates him and that's why, because he would say, hey, don't trust in governments. So essentially, you come to them and say, look, he's a psychopath because he did all this stuff, and they're like, fake news.
Yeah, that's just...
Seriously.
That's just idiotic.
Yep, I agree. So before we dive into the events that occurred in the United States, did you have anything else you wanted to add about his philosophy, his dynamic meditation, or Samadhi, which is oneness of everything so that you can transcend? And a lot of this oneness has to do with sex and expression of primitive stuff through the dynamic meditation.
Yeah.
And that's about it. I mean, that's all there is to it. That and the whole rich man philosophy stuff.
Yeah, we can get more into his rich man philosophy.
What do you think about his philosophy of the rich man's guru and all of that?
I think it's a completely, from one standpoint, as far as his philosophy goes on only wanting to be followed by a rich man, I understand, due to the fact that he was someone who sought after riches, but it's still important to sit there and be that way because you are excluding a great majority of people. And on top of that, it's just completely and utter nonsense.
Yes. It's kind of strange because it seems like inherently it's exclusive, like you said, of people who are poor.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe it ties into, I'm assuming, the idea of karma, that, well, you were born into this poor life because of something you did in a past life or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't see that in here, but the main thing is like glorifying wealth in a way that makes it seem as if the wealthy are more divine and that sex is God, basically.
Yeah.
Because he believed that without it, or to look down upon it, is a sinful act. So we have materialism and, like, just straight up hedonism, just seeking pleasure in the most extreme form of the word hedonism. Not like a name dragon hedonism.
Right.
But just this very boisterous kind of way of life, which could also, without moderation on some of these things, I wouldn't call this wisdom.
Yeah.
And
This is definitely not wisdom.
yeah, and the idea that sex is divine. What do you think of that?
Well, I'm not. I mean, I can't really say that it's not divine, but I mean, but in all seriousness, the whole entire idea that the flooding of the the serotonin levels of your brain,
Oxytocin and serotonin. Well, there's a lot of chemical stuff going on, but yeah.
Yeah, as you're performing the act of sex, has no real basis on anything that has to do with divinity. It can definitely seem like it because everything feels great and it feels amazing. And so I understand the meaning behind what he's trying to accomplish there when he says it, but it's just nonsense.
Well, it says here that what you have to do is you have to open your heart and you have to open your mind.
Which sounds like a bunch of woo nonsense.
Yeah, because, I mean, if they mean this literally,
yeah,
that's not good. Don't do that.
No, don't open your heart because you will bleed out.
Mm-hmm. Most likely.
Yeah, and if you open your mind, that's a bit also bad because your mind is located in your brain, and if you're opening up your brain, you will die as well.
Plop, dead, pretty much.
Pretty much.
So, total acceptance. What do we think of the idea of total acceptance of your primitive self?
Well, total acceptance of your primitive self it's not a good thing, but it's not a bad thing at the same time. And it's one of those things that's really neutral. However, the way that he's trying to depict it, and as far as when you look at his meditation and his philosophy on things, he definitely paints it as something he thinks is good, but it's a bad thing the way he practices it. But as far as your actual primitive self, as far as everything that goes with your raw emotions, it's neither good nor bad. But if you are practicing it in the way that he is having you practice it, it can definitely be a bad.
Do you accept God's existence into your open heart?
Oh, totes legit.
So basically it boils down to, well, what is reasonable to allow as far as your primitive feelings, right? There has to be like some kind of regulation, some kind of moderator on this, a governor.
Yeah, and your consciousness can definitely be that moderator. You just have to know that there is a time and a place for your primitive side to come out, and not every aspect of this is let's just let ourselves go, because that is definitely something that can be seen as bad.
Yeah, but see, according to this philosophy, all that governs the primitive feelings is ego, and you're supposed to get rid of ego. Ego is evil.
Yeah, I don't see ego as being the modifier here. I see cautiousness being the modifier, and cautiousness is something that is evolutionary within us. We are always cautious about things. So, and that comes from even way back during the Neanderthal time frame, where we were cautious about anything and everything that was moving around in the darkness. I mean, cautiousness is what keeps us in check.
Consciousness?
No, cautiousness.
Oh, cautiousness. Okay.
Yeah. Cautiousness is what keeps us where we seek caution, because something can be bad that's beyond us.
What if things that are false positives? Like, say, you're in the dark and you hear noise. And you're like, and you can't sleep because you keep hearing noises.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there any kind of limit to what information you feel initially when you are reacting to stimuli like that? Caution.
Well, the thing is those who you have to look at the time frame available. Like if you're talking about in nowadays time frame, we have many ways of figuring out what is going on, what noises are being made. Simple turning on of the lights, a simple grabbing a flashlight and looking outside can suffice. But during, say, the Neolithic time frame and whatnot, when you hear, or even before then, when you hear something going on in the night, it could be just the wind. But the ones who treated it that as a predator were more likely the ones who were going to survive than the ones who treated it like the wind.
Yep.
And it turned out to be a predator.
But nowadays, I think that a lot of people tend to be overactive in that department. I think that people see dangers in places where none exist, like mainly in terms of like conspiracy theorists and things like this. They see patterns in places that aren't there.
Yeah, and that has to do with also the fact that we are pattern-seeking creatures. We seek patterns and things, and once we see these things, we automatically assume that the patterns that we have found are indeed correct due to the fact that we see the pattern.
So we have to exercise some sort of judgment in order to keep these things in check, right?
Yeah, and if you just let them go all free like, it can cause issues.
Yeah, and see, that was a lot of the issue that I had with New Agers whenever I engaged them, because they would say things like, well, if you're saying that this is not anything more than what I say it is in the pattern, then you're being judgmental. And that judgment, you came from a place of ego.
Yeah, and that's an issue because most of the times it's not about it. It's the fact that people can't take brutal honesty. People want, and this goes with everyone. We all want people to agree with us, regardless if what we're saying is right or not. We want people to agree with us, and the very second you have someone who disagrees with you, automatically they're being negative. And so when you then get people who agree with you behind you, it automatically reassures your first initial reaction that they're just being negative. And so
because it also confirms the bias that you have in terms of, oh, well, these people agree with me, I must be right.
Yeah. And so then whenever you have people that are being brutally honest and they're saying, this is the way I see it, and you're the type of person that takes that honesty and reevaluates yourself with the way you're seeing things, regardless if other people have gotten behind you or not, you are being more honest, intellectually honest, than the people who just say, oh no, you're just being negative.
But see, Osho says that without total acceptance of all of life, you're an atheist.
Okay, if that's what makes me an atheist, because I don't accept what he says, then I'm more than happy being an atheist.
Yeah, oppose this, suppress that, natural is sinful, because, you're not accepting all of your nature, therefore you're rejecting nature completely. And
this all or nothing mentality that is irritating.
Yeah, and to accept everything as it is without judgment is theism, and to judge certain things as bad morally is atheism. Yeah. Yay, Osho philosophy.
Yay.
Yay. I don't know about you, but I sure could go for a Rolls Royce.
Oh, of course.
And some filet mignon, maybe?
Oh, yeah, some filet mignon, maybe some lobster.
Gold encrusted filet mignon.
Oh, yes, and I want to drink my Jack Daniels from a golden chalice.
Ah, Jack Daniels. Psh, barbaric.
Well, the thing is I have to stick to my roots. But if I were to be like Osho, then it would be nothing but the finest Irish whiskey.
Ha!
bottles of whiskey that's like $1,500 a bottle.
Yeah, that's definitely. I don't know if I would feel bad drinking that.
I would feel bad as I laughed at the poor people because I have everything.
I may be bad, but I feel good.
Yes. I feel good as I soak my tears with my $100 bills.
Yes. But yeah, I guess that kind of sums everything up in terms of what Osho believed. I mean, in a roundabout way, in our way, right?
Yeah.
He's kind of silly. He's kind of a jerk. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, I will give him one bit of props.
Okay.
While most people would have secretly been all about being the rich man guru, at least he was honest about it.
Yeah, and I think he was one of the first people to make ASMR videos. Well, other than Bob Ross.
Right.
Because he does this shh.
Yeah, we're gonna paint this happy little bush right here. And...
when he talks.
Yeah. Like shh.
The pauses. Shh. I sound kind of like Sean Connery. Listen to Osho speak sometime. There's all kind of videos.
Oh, I've heard him.
Oh, he just gives me the heebie-jeebies. It's just me.
It's mainly because of the intensity of his staring and the fact that he's slow to talk, but that's because he's trying to be deliberate about the words he uses. And this fierce gaze, as you are being deliberate with your words, does bring on a side of creepiness.
Yeah. Did you see the video where he challenged the Pope to come talk to him?
No, I have not.
Oh, that was funny. You'll have to watch that. Everybody go watch that. I'll link it in the description. But yeah, I guess that's a good place to end on. And next time we'll be talking about, like I said, Osho coming to the United States as Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. I am Mrs. Snarky, and my channel is great. I'm doing things, I'm talking about philosophy, I'm talking about things I'm interested in, sometimes politics, sometimes just, I don't know, whatever. Awful at shilling myself. So yeah, subscribe to me, I'm awesome. That was awful, wasn't it?
Oh, that was great. And I've been Frustrated Atheist. Come check out my channel where more videos will be coming soon.